Hey folks, Wade here at the Shoemakers Academy. Hey, listen, I know it's been a little while since we made a video, and but I want to share with you a few things as we're gearing up to take a trip back to China. I want to share with you some of my sort of travel tips, and some of this is more general business things, and how much of it is shoe related, and some more or less. But hey, let's talk about it. So this trip that we're doing, and hey, also if there's something that you want to see that we haven't covered on the channel related to shoemaking, and it has something to do with China, like something you want to see or a factory or whatever, then let me know. And I'm just gonna show you. This is kind of a maybe not a typical travel plan, but this is what we're doing. So we're gonna fly here into Hong Kong. When I say we, I mean me. I'm gonna actually fly into Hong Kong over here, and you know that's Hong Kong is an island basically on the southern tip of China, right? And then here, this is the Pearl River Delta. So the huge city up here, almost the same size or even larger than Hong Kong, is called Guangzhou, and it's up here. A ton of shoe businesses is in this area in South China. Some of it's moved out, but there's still tons and tons of factories here. So basically, generally, what I do is I fly into Hong Kong, and then I'll take a train or a car up into the shoemaking area. Now, this trip, a little bit differently, we're gonna actually land here in Hong Kong, and we're gonna take a ferry boat over here to an area, to a city called Zhongshan, and that's where we're gonna visit a high heel shoe factory, and just gonna hang out there for a couple hours, and then we're actually gonna get in a car, and we're gonna drive back across the Humen Bridge over here to a town called Hojie. And in this area, in this sort of Dongguan city area, there's a ton of shoe factories, tons of supporting material, mesh, tannery, and on and on and on, all in this area. So we're gonna spend a lot of time here. Now, we're not all going to work. Actually, a good friend of mine, his daughter, the factory owner, actually a guy that I've known for 15 years, his daughter's getting hitched. So we're actually going to take the train out here. It's about 7 hours by that cool high-speed train. And I'm looking forward to it, just to watch the scenery of China go by, because it's remarkable. I mean, it's fascinating. So that's we're going to spend a couple of days out there and actually just doing the tours thing. And then actually I'm going to fly kind of all the way across China. Now, just so you can sort of get a feel for how big China is geographically, it's actually about the same size as the United States. Like if you imagine, this is sort of Miami down here. This trip over here is, somewhere not a little bit past Missouri to get to there, right? But now we're gonna fly over here to the Fujian province, to the town called Xiamen. We're gonna fly over there, and we're gonna visit some factories up and down this area. Now, this is a huge shoemaking area. It started out as more domestic China footwear production, like a little bit lower quality, higher volume, but they've moved into sort of export grade shoes there too. So we're gonna be touring around there, and then we'll take the train back down here to the Hojie area, and we'll finish up with some more tools there. And we're going to be looking at client work, also just touring fresh factories and new stuff to look at. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be about 17 days. It was a huge trip, but it's going to be exciting. I'm excited to see a bunch of old friends and some new people that we're working with. So it's going to be fun. Okay, so how to make the most out of a trip like this. So I've made about 50 trips to China over the past 25 years, and we've also, I say we because I've with business partners and everything, but basically I've been to Korea, to Taiwan, to Thailand, to the Philippines, all in sort of the shoemaking product development part. But also I've been lucky enough, because I've got onto the product management side and some of the sales stuff, to go to visit customers. So Germany, France, the Netherlands, Australia, and Austria, right? So great time traveling to work with customers, all over the world, of course, in the United States too. So, okay, first things first, if you look at all those countries, there's tons of different weather conditions, right? So do yourself a favor and try to get a feel for the local weather. And I was always really bad at it because, I would go to China and I would show up and it would be like thinking it's further south, so a light jacket is fine. But if you get there in February, it's going to be freezing. So one of my friends actually would show up with a winter coat and give it to me as I got off the airplane because he knew I was not going to be prepared. So don't make that mistake. Prepare, look ahead. Check out the weather. Now, here's one thing in particular about China: they don't do heating and air conditioning the way that we do in the United States and Europe. So, particularly heating. So, when you get into these industrial areas or even some of the apartments and stuff, hotels, of course, they're fine, but the rest of it, when it says it's like 55 degrees, it's likely to be 55 degrees in the office, for sure inside the factory, right? So prepare to, it's going to be cold all the time, right? And even some of the apartments I've stayed in, it's all concrete and there's no forced air. It is literally like, electric space heater. So, dress warm. Of course, bring meds, stomach stuff. I mean, I tend to want to enjoy the culture that I'm going to, and I'll show you some pictures of the crazy food. So, hey, you're gonna have some reactions to food. So, bring stomach stuff that works for you. Um, One of the other things, and I promise we'll get to the business part in a second, is I call it the reserve chute, and it's just an extra pair of underwear and a wad of toilet paper in a plastic bag. Just stick it in a sandwich bag and put it in the bottom of your backpack or in the back of your briefcase somewhere. Hey, you may never need it, but you may, right? Because you eat strange food in strange place, out of time, out of place. Your stomach will get hammered, and Vietnam was great. I lost 5 pounds there, but it was also a horrible week. So take care of yourself that way. Hey, do I recommend you pack a suitcase full of power bars? I used to do that a little bit, but hey, if it's the middle of the night and you missed a meal for whatever travel reason, yeah, of course, have a power bar. Bring it with you. People that would just plan on eating out of their suitcase, that's crazy because these countries are awesome. They have such amazing food. You should make it a point to check it out. Now, hey, listen, if it's sitting around, you know, like hot food usually is never a problem, right? But if it's sitting around, whatever, be careful, right? Um, uh, Street food, never. I mean, that's just common sense, okay? When it comes to that kind of stuff, you know, go get your Hep A vaccine, right? You should have your Hep A, B, and C anyways, but Hep A is what you get from eating contaminated food, and you can get a vaccine for that. So go ahead and do that. Now, jet lag, absolutely. If you're traveling from the U.S. or Europe, you're going to get punished with jet lag, and the secret to that is you're going to be so busy generally, you just go with it, right? And just switch your clock, and it takes about an hour a day to readjust. So in the course of a week from US to China, you'll never actually adjust. So but basically what I found is you're usually so busy that you don't notice it until maybe Wednesday afternoon, and then it might hit you like a ton of bricks. So Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, hey, be ready to take a nap, right? And usually if you're working at a nice factory, they'll have a break room or the boss will have a sofa in his office. And Asians, they tend to take naps around lunchtime. So if you need a place to nap, they'll generally find one for you. Or hey, if you're working close to your hotel, hey, jet back to the hotel. If you got to knock off a little early one of those afternoons, or hey, generally when I'm traveling, we're going from factory to factory to factory. So you might have a long car ride, and that's a perfect place to take a nap, right? So do that. Okay. Um, so to make the most out of your any trip, really plan, and planning, of course, the logistics part. Make sure you have a good idea of how you're going to get from place to place, right? And you can save a lot of money by taking the bus in China, but never do that because it's not worth your time, right? You're over there, you might be there for a week, so you have 40 hour, well, actually 60-hour work week. If you're blowing it, waiting around for buses and stuff, don't forget it, man. Just spend the money and get yourself a driver. Now, if you're going to South China and you need a trustworthy driver that knows how to handle Westerners and speaks English and is reasonable, then just shoot me an email or text me or whatever, and I can put you in contact with this driver. He's fantastic. I use him every time I go, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the shoe business or the bag business or whatever business. He knows how to get around, and quite often if you say, hey, I need a factory that makes baseball gloves, then he'll know that because he's been driving people around South China for a dozen years. So okay, so planning, make plan your schedule out. Now the worst thing is to I think it depends what kind of job you're doing, right? I'm assuming you're a designer or developer and you're going to follow up on your projects, right? So you've pushed all your projects out to the factory, so hopefully 3 weeks ago, right? So that they know you're coming, right? And they've got everything that they need to do to get working, because you're there to do something, right? You're there to make decisions and double check or triple check, right? Very seldomly are you just there to high five and celebrate. No, you're there to do some work, right? So that means you're going to look in on a development sample depending on what phase, right? And depending on how many different factories you work with. If you're a small brand and you work with one factory, great. I've been in a case where I've worked with literally 6 or 8 different factories, and that's why I would go for 2 weeks. Let everyone know that I'm coming. Tell them, give them the expectation of what you want to see, right? Make sure they ask, if they're not asking you questions a week before you get there, then they're not working on your project. So you really need to get out and make sure that they're doing it right, and ask them some questions to make sure that they're getting into it. Hey, were you able to find that material? And if they don't answer you, then maybe they didn't look, right? So really push them to do that. And the other thing is, nothing clarifies the mind of a factory when you say, hey, I'm coming on this day and this is what I want to see. They'll either get it done or tell you that it's not happening, right? Okay. And like I said, really nothing clarifies the mind, right? So depending on what phase of development you're in, right? If you're going to look at development samples, then you're going to see patterns and pullovers and drawings and woodcuts, and those things, of course, can be just mailed to you. But if you're there in the factory, then you can decide quicker, right? And this is a little bit one of the things you got to be careful about is if you've got a whole bunch of stuff you're working on, at some point you have to tell the factory, okay, stop shipping samples. And I've had this happen where you say, hey, I'm going to be here this day, and they say, oh, we didn't know, we didn't realize what was happening, so we mailed the sample. So you get to the factory, and the shoe that you want to look at, you passed it in the air, and it's sitting in your office in California or Frankfurt or wherever you're from, right? So you're like, that's really frustrating. Okay, make me another one. Oh, well, how can you do that? So basically be clear about when you're going to get there and what you want to see. Now, if you're going to look at sort of photo sample or sales sample, you might not actually be looking at the finished shoe. What you might be looking at is the material. So, hey, I want to see the materials that you prepared to make the photo sample and to make the sales sample, right? And that way you might be looking at all the parts and you might not actually see the finished shoe, but at least you can double check the color matching and the logos and go over any corrections, right? Now, this is another thing too. When you're sitting with your factory folks, in China, and usually everybody has a computer or a notepad, right? And if you're sitting with somebody and they don't have a computer or a notepad, tell them to go get one, because they've got to remember this stuff. Now, I always take time to have my computer open and as we make decisions and work together, make bullet point notes of everything that you saw that you wanted to change. And odds are, when you're working with a factory, again, this is depending on what size of a business you're working in. If you're working for a smaller business, it might just be you and the factory developer. Or if you're working for a larger company where you have a representative office, right? So you might be there with your local representative and the factory person. So, making sure that you have a document that records all the decisions and photographs of the issues, so that you're the keeper of the notes, right? So that you can type it all out and email it to everyone that was in the meeting, so everyone agrees what changes you were going to make and what issues there were going to be. And that becomes your trip report. Now, the other thing is, you really, as a developer, as a designer, as a product manager, you want to be in a position when you're working with the factory to be the decision maker, right? The worst thing is to look at a shoe and say, oh, you know what, I have to check with the home office. That's not really a productive way to use your time. So I hope you can avoid that situation. I would always be like, hey man, I'm here to push to move it forward. And sometimes even if a sample is not 100% perfect, but it's there, right? Because you can Photoshop it, or you can modify it, or you can discuss it, or if you hold it up at a sales meeting, even if it's wrong, you can talk around it. But holding up the shoe that's wrong is slightly wrong is often better than showing nothing, right? So think about that. Okay, let me see here. So yeah, clear change of command and decision making process. That really is a bummer. And actually nowadays we have such great communication tools that if you have to wake somebody up in the middle of the night back home to ask a question or show them an issue, do it. You plan on that. Now, here's the other thing too. When you're traveling in China or in the Far East, WeChat is a way to go. So get your phone set up for WeChat, whether you use local data or just use Wi-Fi everywhere. WeChat is the way to go. That's the software that everybody uses to communicate. Definitely before you go, get it installed on your phone and make sure that all the folks that you're going to be meeting with or working with, make sure you have all their contact information. Because many times when you're traveling and you're trying to find a factory and you haven't been there before, WeChat is going to be the way to go because they can shoot you a pin or whatever, and your driver can look at it and navigate you to get there. So important to know that. Okay. So structuring your visit. Now, again, if you're working with one factory, awesome. You can spend 5 days camping out at that one factory. If you have a representative office, I've seen folks, travel from California to the representative office in the main, town in China, and sit in the representative office for the whole week and never get out to visit the factories. So, not a great idea, because the point is to get out there and see the factories. Yes, you can be more productive if you're working in the representative office than, say, in California, but you've just traveled all this way and gone through the inconvenience. You really should get out to the factories, A, to see how it's really being done, and A, meet the people, right? Now, again, depending on whether you work for a big company or a small company, you could either have, usually the bigger the company you are, the smaller your job responsibility is going to be. The smaller the company is, the bigger it is, right? So when you're working for a larger company, you might just be working with the low level people at the factory. Fine, that's how it works. You work with a development manager that faces and works on your project. Great. If you're working for a smaller company, you actually may be more responsible to manage the relationship. So you might be actually going out for lunch with the factory owner or the general manager of the whole place. So, you got to think about sort of what level you're working at. And I've been in a circumstance where, yeah, I'm in the sample room working with those folks, but come to lunch, we go out to lunch or dinner with the owner, right? So sometimes, and this is kind of the fun and interesting part, is that you'll get tied up into sort of, not to say local politics, but hey, if you're the VIP customer, right? Even if you're a lower level employee for your company, if you're the only one that goes to China, then you're the face of it. So your factory owner may actually want to take you out to dinner and meet the local boss, the county boss or whatever. I've been in that circumstance. Or hey, there's a holiday party. It would be really nice if you came with us, for the factory owner to have their Western customer show up to a fancy dinner in their hometown or wherever it's being done. Hey, good idea. Do that, right? Support your factory as they support you. I'm gonna back up a little bit. Really be prepared to work, right? Like I said, if you're just staying in China for just a week, I mean, if you're gonna go through all the effort to get there, I would almost never go for 1 week. I would have to go for 2. And the reason I would do that is because I was working with lots of different factories. And I would say on Monday, I want to go see the factory that's the worst, that has the most problems or the most trouble or whatever, the one that's going to take the most effort. Go see them. And if everything's great, high five, have lunch, and you don't have to see them again. If there's a real problem, then you can say, okay, here's a list of the things that I want to see, and I'm going to come back on Wednesday or I'm going to come back next week, Monday, or, just get them on the book so you can see the issues and then have time to circle back and get to them. If you have a factory that has everything on lockdown, hey, maybe go see them in the afternoon and have a dinner and high five each other, and great. And that's the other thing too. Chinese in particular, they will entertain you almost to death, right? So, they will ask you to drink the local, rice wine, all day long. So just be careful, enjoy yourself. They like to save face to entertain the client or the customer. Just stick to your limit, because like I said, they'll kill you, by drinking too much. So, and it's not, evil or whatever. That's just how they operate. When I've been to walked into a lunch where it was just the local people and they're drinking way too much at lunchtime, but hey, that's the way they do it sometimes. Okay. So, let's see. Hey, now this is the other part too. Aside from the working part. Now, when you're there in China, you might be working at sort of the mother factory that does the assembly. But if there's a midsole or an outsole or a hardware piece that's not right, or you're not sure how it's made and you have time, then go to the subcontractor. 100% do that. Right? It's so useful to go see how these other sub processes are made. So as a designer, as a developer, you can think about what the capabilities of the process are, but also sort of troubleshoot it, right? Usually if you're designing some new technology or new part, there's going to be some subcontractor involved. It's worth it to go visit. Now, what happens when you get to the subcontractor? The first thing they're going to say is, hey, let's drink tea. Great. You should do that, right? Because that's just sort of, hey, they don't often get Western customers, some of these places. So they're going to want to drink tea, and they'll show you. If you just sit back, they'll show you everything that they're working on. Or you can see competitors' injection molded parts or whatever it is they're doing, right? They're happy to show you if you make the effort to go visit them. So definitely do that. Yeah, you always have time to drink a cup of tea. Okay. Next thing is, enjoy the local hospitality, right? Go out for dinners. If you're there over a weekend, hey, go see some cultural site. And I really do enjoy having dinner with the people I've worked with, and I've been invited to, to weddings, to local holiday parties, those types of things, and just get to know the people and enjoy. If the town you're working at is interesting, you should check it out. Now, here's the other thing too, is don't be afraid to stay at a Chinese hotel. Sometimes the food is not great, but I can tell you, I was working at this factory, and the more Western, nicer hotel was 45 minutes away. So I was wasting all this time driving back and forth to this hotel when a local Chinese, like 4-star, which, like, and the food wasn't great, but it was 5 minutes away from the factory. So we just, I was like, oh, why did I stay out here? Like, this was such a waste of time. Now, you have to sort of balance it, but you're in China, you've taken a lot of time and effort to get there. If you're spending all your time commuting back and forth from a factory to the hotel, you're just wasting your time. So try not to do that if you can, right? And again, I've had to argue or had to train, guy how to boil an egg. Like, I just want boiled eggs, man, right? Which is not that fun, but the amount of time we saved by just staying at the local place was incredibly valuable. All right. So before we go on, I want to take a commercial break, and I want to tell you that this video is brought to you by the Shoe Material Design Guide. If you're a designer or developer or a product manager and you want to learn about shoe materials, then the Shoe Material Design Guide is a fantastic place to do your research. And we're going to show you a little video here, show you what's inside this book. You're going to see chapters on leather, chapters on textile, on midsole construction, different designs, what parts are glued together, and then in the back of the book, there's dozens of shoes cut apart with all the materials listed. You can see we got a lot of awesome 4-star reviews. We go through packaging, we go through warehousing, pattern making, hardware, and a bunch of different shoe types. So again, this book is available at the shoemakersacademy.com. Please visit, or you can find it on Amazon. Okay, that's our sponsor. back to China. So um, what else? Yeah, travel. It can really be a headache and a hassle, but it can also be super valuable. And number one, it's an amazing adventure, and if you have to spend the rest of the 11 months a year sitting in your cube, and you get 1 month to travel, whether it's to sell or something, or to the factory to do development, it's really incredibly valuable, and I find it is a lot of fun. Yeah, there's a lot of waiting in line and sitting on airplanes, but it is kind of what makes shoemaking a real adventure for me, anyways. Oh yeah, I was going to show you some photos. Okay, so you're going to see some strange things, like duck kidney snacks. Okay, fine. This is okay. Hey, you're there, right? So this is my friend Bernie, and what is this picture? This picture is December 11th, right? So what it is we were working overtime to get this new product ready, to deliver it into the market, and we were air freighting it because it had to get into the market by Christmas time. And here it is, December 11th. So what is this? It's dark out, right? Because we just stayed up, all hours, to jam, to sit with the factory and to finish the assembly to make this new. This actually was a hydrofoil product for wakeboarding or kite surfing. So it was a real achievement, and we'd spent been in the factory for 2 weeks, and we jammed to get it done. So here we are, celebrating with the truck open because this first production run is going out the door. Okay. Processes, right? So here the guys they're silk screening this shoe component, right? You get to see how they're doing, and here you can, this is very typical, right? And you can walk down the row and see how the workers are assembling the pieces, and you can, see some quality. Hey, you might actually see your competitor's shoe being made, so you should look at that too. Um, Adventures. Okay, so over the weekend, what is this? This is actually there's a fruit in China called lychee nut, right? And it's harvested in June and July. And yeah, right. This picture is from June 28th, right? So one of the factory guys, his family owned a small orchard, a lychee orchard. Hey, you want to come pick it? So here we went and picked, and here's the market where they sell it, fresh ones. And they're really, if you go there in June and July, they're selling this by the side of the road. It's super tasty, but that's just an adventure you can have. Okay, here's an adventure in a tooling shop, right? So you'll spend some time here. Oh, yeah, chicken feet. It happens, right? Don't eat those. Okay, so drinking tea, right? So this is so typical. We're going to the subcontractor. We're in his factory. He's got his fancy tea set up, and he's gonna pour tea, and we're gonna talk about it. And here's the parts. So there you go. So typical. Make time to do that because you'll learn a lot. Actually, what you can't see in this picture is behind us. There's a whole showroom of all the little bits and pieces, and it's really fun whilst they're putting things together to go look and see what else they're making. All right, yeah. So drinking tea. Hey, you might have some strange adventure. I remember this night. We were visiting a subcontractor, and it got kind of late. And I was like, hey, do you want to go to this country restaurant where they literally, catch the fish off the back porch and serve it to you? And why not? Let's try it, right? So you have an adventure. And of course, the factory guys, you're there. They want to tour you through, show you their stuff, because they might, like I said, might not see Westerners in the factory so often. So they're happy to tour. And of course, they want to pose for a picture. Local stuff, right? So when I tour through the factories, I always see that they have this little statue of the red-faced god, Gui Lu, and he is the protector of your family and of your prosperity. Okay, so for $25, I got one of these, and it's in my house. So just stuff. Okay, it's touristy stuff. All right, hey friends, right? So here we are in a mold shop. I've got my friend Simon standing next to this mold, so you can just see how big this injection mold is. So, but this is part of when you say, hey, I want to make this, what does that really mean? Is it a giant mold? Is it a small mold? When they say, hey, this mold is $5,000 per size, and you say, why is it so much? And you see it here and you go, oh yeah, right, that's why it's so expensive, because it's that big. Okay, so yeah, here's an adventure with one of my coworkers over there and her two young children, and it's a Saturday, and we're out at the lake enjoying a barbecue, and you know, here's me and her little boys, and oh yeah, these great food. Here's some like octopus or some squid or whatever. So yeah, enjoy the food if you can, and hey, you'll have adventures, right? So this is a this is a huge sort of temple park, and it's a kind of a big schlep up to get to it, and then you relax and you have a cup of tea, you know, by the side of the trail, and you just, you know, the things you can do if you stay over the weekend, right? And just, you know, have a good time and have an adventure. So yeah, these are just, you know, some random things that you can see. So, you know, I hope these tips help you, whether you're doing footwear or whatever. You know, as long as if you plan your trip right, and you plan ahead, let people know what your expectations are, and you can really make the most out of your trip, and actually have an adventure, and you'll I guarantee you, if you can get over to China and travel and visit factories, that you'll have an adventure that you will remember your whole life. And I look forward to going back. So hey, folks, that's it. You know, if you want more videos and stuff like this, more information about shoemaking, then slide on over to shoemakersacademy.com. We've got tons of books, tons of courses. Whether you're a beginner or you're already in the business and you're looking to build your skills, just come on over. Again, we've got books, courses. We have tons of shoemaking tools and supplies if you're doing the DIY deal. So again, feel free to slide over. And again, hey, if you visit the website, you see my email is up here in the corner, the Shoe Dog at Shoemakers Academy. Go ahead and shoot me an email if you have a question. Then also down here at the bottom of the page, there's a thing there that says book a chat, right? So if you have a question about business or about one of our products, you can go ahead and you can book a chat, and it'll do a Zoom session or just a time to schedule a phone call so you can talk to me. Not that you're not already had enough of me already today, but that's it, folks, and we'll talk to you soon.